There is a certain type of downfall that doesn't come with sirens or headlines. It creeps in quietly, cloaked in tenderness, and it often begins with a whisper, not a war. He was a man revered by many, the kind others instinctively deferred to. His intellect shaped boardrooms, his confidence commanded nations of thought. His power wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Yet as the years passed, that same power began to erode, not all at once, slowly, precisely, like sand slipping through a clenched fist. He couldn't quite trace when it began. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, with admiration so sincere it disarmed him. Or how she asked about his dreams, his fears, his scars. Not to heal them, but to study them. Perhaps it was the way she made him feel both invincible and vulnerable in the same breath. She didn't take power from him. He handed it to her, piece by piece, wrapped in the velvet of trust. What destroyed him wasn't betrayal in the traditional sense. There were no secret affairs, no public humiliations, just a gradual loss of self. Opinions softened, edges dulled. He became agreeable, pliable. A man who once moved mountains now asked permission to breathe. And when it finally collapsed, his empire, his identity, his will, he stood in silence, unable to blame anyone but himself. Because she never asked for control, she merely inspired it. This is the kind of betrayal no one warns you about, because it wears the mask of love, and it forces us to ask, can love be used as a weapon to disarm the powerful? It's here we turn to a mind who saw through the illusions most never question, Niccolò Machiavelli. Not the caricature of cruelty many have labeled him, but the analyst of ambition, the architect of power, the dissector of human motive. In his lesser-quoted meditations, beyond the battlefield, behind the throne, he hints at something darker, that not all threats wear armor. Some wear perfume. Machiavelli didn't just warn rulers about enemies, he warned them about lovers. Because power isn't always lost in war. Sometimes it's surrendered in bed. In the shadows of empires and under the surface of diplomacy, there's a quiet game few ever speak of. One that doesn't involve swords, armies, or decrees, but whispers, glances, and silk-draped traps. Niccolò Machiavelli, often misunderstood as a mere advocate for tyranny, was never just obsessed with brute force. At his core, he was obsessed with reality, raw, unfiltered, and often uncomfortable. His infamous dictum, "It is better to be feared than loved," wasn't an invitation to cruelty. It was a warning, a reminder that love is unpredictable, often conditional, and dangerously deceptive. Because what if love isn't love at all? What if it's a test you didn't know you were taking, a weapon dressed in warmth? In The Prince, Machiavelli speaks of ruling with calculated manipulation, how appearances can shield intentions, and how sentimentality weakens resolve. But it's in the discourses, and more hauntingly, in his private letters, where something even more intriguing surfaces. He hints at a force subtler than war, the influence of women. In Renaissance Florence, women were not merely passive ornaments of court life. They were confidants to kings, lovers to generals, couriers of secrets. Their power didn't rest in title or rank. It lived in suggestion, seduction, and silence. And Machiavelli saw it all. He observed that many men, even the strongest, become malleable in the hands of women who don't just love, they study. To him, a woman could serve as the ultimate test of a man's discipline, not because she seeks to destroy, but because her power is in making him forget who he is. Machiavelli saw the phenomenon we now call soft power, the ability to shape outcomes not by force, but by charm, by dependence, by emotional need. He wasn't warning men to avoid women. He was warning rulers, thinkers, leaders, to never lose themselves in the illusion of affection. Because submission wrapped in passion is still submission, and the man who abandons vigilance in the face of beauty may find himself conquered without a single battle fought. Every man who has ever been seduced by affection, only to later find himself powerless, asks the same question: how do I know if it was real? Machiavelli had an answer, not in romantic poetry, but in cold clinical observation. If you wish to know the heart of a person, deny them what they most desire, and observe. This is not cynicism, it's strategy. It's what we call the Machiavellian test. At its core, it's simple. Withhold validation, withdraw interest, deny the emotional reward, and then wait. Why does this work? Because when the performance ends, the truth begins. Humans are conditioned to act in pursuit of reward, praise, attention, approval. But when the reward is removed, only the core motives remain. In romance, this is where the mask often slips. So, what does this test look like in practice? It might be a sudden silence, a pattern of attention, broken, the compliments stop, the text slow, the energy shifts, or it might come through emotional boundaries. Saying no when you once said yes, disagreeing where you once conformed, challenging her where you once folded. What follows is the revelation. A woman who is genuinely interested may lean in. She'll grow curious, maybe a little anxious, but respectful. She'll express vulnerability, seek connection, open up. But the manipulator reacts differently. She might escalate. Suddenly, you're the villain, distant, cold, ungrateful. She may deploy guilt, shame, or even tears, not to reconnect, but to regain control. Or she might flip the game, go silent, posturing indifference, love bombing you days later in a calculated wave. These tactics have names in psychology. Love bombing, overwhelming attention to trap you. Silent treatment, withdrawal as punishment, not reflection. Damsel in distress, creating chaos to pull you back into savior mode. But here's the brutal truth. Power doesn't shift when affection is lost. It shifts when a man is afraid to lose it. The Machiavellian test is not about cruelty. It's about clarity. You don't test her to manipulate her. You test her to protect yourself. Because in a world where charm can camouflage conquest, sometimes the only way to see the truth is to turn the lights off and watch who's still standing beside you. Love has always been portrayed as a sanctuary, the escape from life's brutal power plays. But what if it's just another battlefield, a more deceptive one, where the weapons are not blades but glances, where surrender feels like intimacy and domination looks like affection? Behind every failed king, broken genius, or fallen leader, there's often not just betrayal, but emotional blindness. And psychology gives us the vocabulary to decode this blindness. Let's begin with attachment theory. A man with anxious attachment gives too much, too soon. He clings. He bleeds affection to be seen as worthy. He mistakes validation for connection, and love for rescue. The avoidant, on the other hand, withholds affection. He keeps his cards close. He views love as a risk, intimacy as exposure. And ironically, both archetypes are predictable and exploitable. The anxious man gives power away in exchange for comfort. The avoidant man creates pursuit, often drawing others in, only to repel them again. Both lose control, just in different ways. Then there's the Madonna whore complex, a psychological split in how men categorize women, the sacred or the sinful, the nurturer or the seductress, the woman you marry or the one you desire. This binary thinking isn't just limiting, it's dangerous. Because when men idealize or demonize women, they stop seeing them clearly and open themselves to manipulation or betrayal. And then comes hypergamy, a term both biological and cultural, the instinct for women to seek upward social mobility through romantic selection. It's not inherently malicious, but in unbalanced relationships, it can create illusion. Does she love you or your status? Is she drawn to your soul or your power? And when the power fades, does the love go with it? These aren't just theories. History has shown us their truth. Cleopatra seduced the most powerful men in the world, not out of love, but strategy. Mata Hari toyed with military officers, extracting secrets with every smile. And in modern times, men of influence, politicians, entrepreneurs, visionaries, have fallen not because of public failure, but private naivety. So, we ask, what happens when a man gives everything? He becomes dependent, predictable, easily controlled. And what happens when a man gives nothing at first? He becomes mysterious, valued, respected, even feared. Love, when untested, doesn't always reveal truth. Sometimes it conceals it, because the heart, unchecked, can be the finest blindfold a man ever wears. In Machiavelli's time, power was measured in land, bloodlines, and loyalty. Today, power lives in screens, validation arrives in notifications, and seduction doesn't require presence, just pixels. But the game, it hasn't changed. If anything, it's evolved. It's faster, louder, more deceptive. And in this modern dating arena, the Machiavellian test still holds power, but it's become harder to apply. Why? Because we live in an era that preaches emotional transparency, but punishes emotional discipline, where withholding attention is labeled as manipulative, but oversharing is rewarded as authentic, where simping is seen as romantic, and stoicism as toxic. But here's the truth. Withholding attention is not cruelty, it's filtration. It's how you protect your identity from being consumed by desire. It's how you separate those who see you from those who just want from you. And nowhere is this distortion more evident than on social media, a marketplace of manufactured femininity. A woman posts a filtered photo. Within minutes, 300 likes, 40 fire emojis, 12 men asking, "Where's my hug?" These aren't admirers, they're metrics. And the woman who becomes addicted to these metrics begins to value validation over intimacy. This is where the Machiavellian test becomes essential. Silence isn't absence, it's observation. And the woman who can withstand it, who doesn't crumble when she isn't centered in your gaze, is the one worthy of it. So we turn the lens inward. Self-tests for men. Can you say no to beauty that disrespects your peace? Can you walk away when charm crosses a boundary? Can you tell the difference between true desire and emotional debt disguised as connection? This is not about punishing women, it's about respecting yourself. The test doesn't need to be harsh. It doesn't require games, just awareness. Withhold approval, not to hurt, but to see. Set a boundary, not to dominate, but to measure. Walk away, not out of pride, but out of principle. Because in a world addicted to yes, the man who knows when to say no is the man who can never be owned. Power is never one-sided, not in war, not in politics, and certainly not in love. If you think you're the only one testing, you've already failed hers. Because many women, consciously or not, play Machiavelli's game too. But their strategies are quieter, more psychological, and far more subtle. It might come as silence after a moment of connection, a delayed reply, a sudden shift in tone, no explanation, just absence, a vacuum. And you begin to spiral, replaying every word, every look, every moment. That's her test. In psychological circles and pickup theory, this is known as the shit test. A deliberately provocative comment, a tease, a withdrawal of warmth, designed to gauge your reaction. Will you beg? Will you defend? Will you fold? Or will you stand still, calm, grounded, unmoved? Machiavelli once wrote, "Power is revealed when provoked. She wants to know if you're solid, if your identity can survive her storm, if you are who you appear to be, or if you're just another man performing strength to mask insecurity. Because to her, composure equals control. Stillness signals strength, and if you flinch, she sees it, not just as weakness, but as unreliability." This is where many men lose themselves. They confuse her test for rejection. They try to fix what isn't broken. They overinvest to win back approval, and end up handing over their soul. But here's the truth. Her test is not rejection. It's a mirror. She's not asking, "Do you want me?" She's asking, "Are you the man you claim to be when I pull away?" The game isn't to manipulate her in return. It's to prove to yourself that you're not so easily swayed by beauty, charm, or conditional affection. Because in this dance of testing, the one with emotional sovereignty wins. Not the one who reacts fastest, not the one who pleases most, but the one who remains unmoved until he chooses to move. And so we return to where we began. A man, once powerful, stripped not by enemies, but by affection. Not because she demanded control, but because he gave it freely, piece by piece, smile by smile, until there was nothing left of him but a shadow who once believed love was always pure. But Machiavelli was never a cynic. He wasn't warning us against love. He was warning us against blindness. His philosophy was surgical, not spiteful. realistic, not ruthless. Because love, real love, is not the absence of reason. It is the product of it. It must follow respect, not precede it. When you give love without testing character, without observing how someone behaves in your silence, you don't connect, you surrender. And in that surrender, you blur the line between intimacy and manipulation. Before you fall in love, ask yourself, would this person still want me if I stopped giving them anything? If the answer shakes you, you already know what to do. Because what's given freely without qualification is rarely valued and never protected. Testing isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's how you separate the ones who want you from the ones who want what you offer. And emotional control? That's not toxicity, that's sovereignty. The ability to stay centered in a world that profits from pulling you off balance. So, love, yes. Desire, yes. Connection, always. But first, test. Not to dominate, but to reveal. Because in a world of illusions, where power is traded for praise, love, when unearned, can be the most beautiful weapon ever wielded against you. But when earned, it's no longer a weapon, it's armor.